Thursday, 9:18 p.m. Zeke typed the reply. Read it once, then deleted everything. He stared at the screen and started over. Whatever he said next would probably decide which job his younger brother accepted. One offered more money, the other looked like a step backward. At least, that's how it looked. Zeke put his phone down, walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, came back. The message was still there, waiting. 5 years earlier, his brother would have never asked him, not about a career, not about money, not about a decision that could shape the next 10 years of his life. Back then, Zeke was just trying to figure his own life out. Now, somehow, people kept asking him what they should do with theirs, his younger brother, his friends, even coworkers older than him. The strange part, nobody knew how much money he had. Nobody had seen his investments. Nobody knew his bank balance. So why did they suddenly trust his judgment? And for the first time, he asked himself, when did that happen? The answer wasn't a promotion. It wasn't a lucky investment. And it definitely wasn't the day he felt rich. Looking back, people had started noticing something long before he ever did. Not because his life looked different, because, without realizing it, the way he made decisions had quietly changed. And once that happened, people started treating him differently, long before his bank account ever caught up. 3 weeks earlier, Zeke was having dinner with a few friends, nothing unusual, just burgers, and the same conversations they always had. One of them pulled out his phone. I've got 2 offers. He slid the screen across the table. This one pays almost 20,000 more, he smiled. I think the choice is obvious. Everyone nodded, except Zeke. He looked at the screen for a few seconds, then quietly asked, which one makes you more valuable 5 years from now? The table went silent. His friend frowned. What? You heard me. The money sounds great. But what happens after the money? Nobody said anything. Not because Zeke sounded smarter. Because nobody else had asked that question. A year earlier, he wouldn't have asked it either. Back then, every financial decision had only one score. How much does it pay? Now, without even realizing it, he had started asking, where does this lead? The conversation moved on. Dinner ended. Everyone went home. It seemed like an ordinary night. Until the following week, when that same friend called him. I turned down the higher salary, Zeke smiled. You think I made the right choice? His friend laughed. No. I think you already knew the answer, before the rest of us did. For the first time, Zeke realized people weren't just listening to his advice anymore. They were changing their decisions because of it. And that was only the beginning. A few months later, something even stranger happened, not because of what someone said, because of what nobody questioned. It was Friday night. A group of friends had gone out for dinner. The waiter placed the bill on the table. Everyone looked at it. Then, without saying a word, one of his friends slid it toward Zeke. You take it. I'll send everyone their share. Zeke looked up. Why me? His friend shrugged. I don't know. You're just better with this stuff. The conversation moved on. Nobody thought twice about it, but Zeke did. Driving home, he kept replaying that moment. Years ago, he would have been the last person anyone trusted with money. He was the guy who forgot subscriptions, paid late, bought things he didn't need. Now, people handed him responsibility, without even talking about it. The strange part, they weren't trusting his wallet. They were trusting his judgment. Looking back, he realized something. People don't notice your income. They notice your habits. They notice the way you react under pressure, the questions you ask, the decisions you don't rush, the things you quietly stop chasing. Long before anyone knows how much money you have, they already know how you think. And that's usually what they're trusting. Not your success, your discipline. And he looked at the old conversation again. For the first time, he wasn't wondering whether he had given the right advice. He was wondering when he had become the kind of person people trusted in the first place. And the answer was still hiding inside moments that had never seemed important. That night, Zeke couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because his brother had taken the second job, because, for the first time, he understood why people kept asking him, It had never been about money. It had never been about investing. It wasn't even about success. People had been watching something else for years. Every small decision, every delayed reward, every moment, he chose the harder path over the easier one. And suddenly, the message sitting on his phone felt different. It wasn't just another question, it was proof that someone had been watching long before Zeke ever realized. He picked up his phone again, looked at the screen. The message was still open. He read it one last time. "Which job would you take?" And finally, started typing. He finally replied, "Take the second one, the one that pays less. You'll earn less this year, but you'll become someone who earns more for the rest of your life." He hit send. That was it. No long explanation, no lecture, just one message. A few weeks later, his brother called. "I took it." There was a pause. Then he laughed. "You know what's funny? I didn't ask anyone else." Zeke smiled. "Why?" His brother thought for a second, then said something Zeke never forgot. "Because every time I watched you make a decision, it worked out years later. Not days, not weeks, years." The call ended. Zeke sat there, thinking. Nobody had ever seen his bank account. Nobody knew what he invested in. Nobody knew how much he earned. But somehow, the people closest to him had seen something else, something he had completely missed. They had watched hundreds of ordinary decisions. The expensive thing he didn't buy, the promotion he didn't chase, the risk he didn't take, the one he did. Each decision looked meaningless on its own, but together they told a story people noticed long before he ever did. Maybe that's how building wealth really works. Nobody wakes up one morning and suddenly looks wealthy. Instead, the people around you start trusting your decisions before your bank account has a chance to prove them right. And maybe that's the first real sign you're building something bigger than money. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe, because the next chapter might be another change you don't notice until years later.